live from the county where we are at this speak right now is actually Jubilee Market. That gives you a hint of exactly what we'll be discussing today. We'll be discussing what needs to be done to the SMEs in the country so that then they can actually move to the next level. Because we understand SMEs are the drivers of our economy, but of course in the last couple of years, or in the recent past, they have actually been facing a myriad of challenges, and those challenges have led to a number of them closing shop or alternatively stuttering for quite some time. The question then is that what can actually be done to these SMEs to ensure that indeed they can actually move to the next level. But help us delve through the entire process, of course, is the people who are directly involved with day-to-day running of SMEs and capacitating them in terms of financial support. And on my extreme left is James Omundi Ouma, who is the general manager of Afrex Sacco, and my immediate left is James Donge, who is the capacity officer at Wes Fund. The two, of course, will be telling us a number of issues that actually need to be done and what they've actually been doing on the ground just to ensure that indeed SMEs can continue to drive the economy as they are expected. But before we continue, just remember that Chan is on KBC Channel 1. So tune in, of course, each and every day up until the end of this month. We'll be watching Chan on KBC. Also, remember that Harambee Stars will be participating. So pay your time so that then you can actually support our national team. James and James, welcome.
Thank you.
Yes, SMEs, of course, are the drivers of our economy. A myriad of challenges in the recent past. How then can we move, James?
Let me start by introducing myself. I'm James Dong. Is domiciled in the Ministry of Cooperatives and MSME Development. Wes Fund was incepted in 2013-2014, and since then, by an act of Parliament, since then, out to over 86,000 groups, well over 1 million individuals. And the mandate of the fund is actually to provide affordable and accessible funds to 3 special categories of groups, that is women, youth, and people living with disability. So Wes Fund is in that space of financial inclusion, offering affordable and accessible finances to the underserved and unserved across the 290 constituencies within the country. So in every constituency, Wes Fund has a committee that is mandated to run the activities, identifying groups, beneficiary groups, vetting these groups, and finally forwarding the vetted groups to the Secretariat for approval and the final funding of the groups, which is normally done at the constituency level. If you look at the structure of Wes Fund, the national patron is His Excellency the President, and then at the constituency level we have Mheshimiwa the MP, who is the patron, and there's a committee that oversees the activities of the fund.
That's it, James.
Yes.
Over the years, of course, there have been lamentations here and there about uptake of these funds. And specifically, I'll give you an example of Homa Bay County. Homa Bay County, uptake and repayment of those loans is something that you cannot write anything about. What exactly is happening?
Talking about uptake, especially in this area, you mentioned Homa Bay County.
Yes.
Homa Bay County, our statistics indicate the uptake is around, is almost 100%. The challenge that we have is that a number of these groups, once they are funded, this is a revolving fund. So the model of Wes Fund is in a way that once these groups are funded, they are supposed to, pay back. And remember, Wes Fund is zero rated in terms of interest. So when these groups pay back, for example, we normally start at 50,000, between 50 to 100,000. So when they repay within a period of 1 year, they are given twice the amount. So if they got like 50,000, their first refinancing will be 100,000 shillings. The challenge is, especially in this region, is that a number of groups have not repaid. The repayment rate in these regions is relatively low. And It's attributed majorly to the messaging. The messaging at the point of disbursement of these funds. We've had a bit of political interference. This is a revolving fund. They are supposed to repay and access the fund upwards to 500,000, and it revolves so that other groups can also benefit. So that has been the challenge within this region, but we have mounted campaigns so that a number of those affected groups can repay and benefit up to 500,000.
James, is it political interference? Is it the way the fund is structured? Is it the capacity of some of the loanees to actually repay back, or what exactly is affecting the repayment of these resources?
Two issues that come out prominently. The messaging first, and especially this affected the fund in 2014 and 15. But thereafter, we have changed the messaging so that most of these groups, at least right now, they know that this is a revolving fund meant for MSMEs, especially at the lowest level, that is at the group level. So a number of them have changed. This fund is meant for table banking within the groups. These groups normally conduct what we call group savings and loanings. So when we fund them, they use these funds to give to each member of the group, and the group members in turn, use it to conduct or do their business, expand their businesses, and then they are able to repay. When they repay, we enhance their funding to the next level. We normally have like refinancing 1, 2, 3, and 4, upwards to 500. So there's the issue of capacity building in terms of working along with this or with the groups, mentoring them over time. But ideally, in this region, the effect has been occasioned by the messaging.
The messaging.
Yes.
James, he's talking about messaging and just ensuring that people can actually repay the money. That picture paints a situation where it is pretty difficult to actually give out your money and expect money back, right? But your organization, Afresa Circle, has actually been active in Kisumu County and has been growing tremendously. The question then that begs is that what are we doing different? What needs to be done so that then we can actually reach more beneficiaries and, more importantly, have the money back so that then you can actually support other people?
Thank you very much. Afresa Circle, we are a member-owned entity, and basically our main work is actually to avail savings and credit services. So as we are availing these services, number one thing that we've actually invested in since 2020, because it came into existence in 2020 February, during the pandemic period, just a few months before the COVID-19 pandemic. And through the process, we managed actually to grow over time from member one up to now over 10,000 members in place within the same county and also now across other counties. Virtually, we have virtual offices across other counties, and we also have physical offices, that is Kisumu, Kakamega, and Nyamira. The reason for expansion or rather opening these offices is because of the need that we realized or rather experienced in the process. So this need brought the existence of the 2 additional physical offices and 296 virtual offices across the country. So we've done this basically because just the main point that we've said, the growth basis. The reason why we've been able to grow is because of the capacity building aspect that we've done so far. We realize that dealing with MSMEs, number one thing that you need to invest in majorly is actually capacity building. Give them knowledge in line with the given products that you're issuing to them. When it comes to credit input, you really have to, number one thing look into is now the aspect of knowledge. Because the moment the person, the final consumer, who is the member, does not understand why they are taking that credit facility, definitely you expect them to default. You cannot expect someone to actually repay if they're not knowledgeable in line with whatever they're actually having. So when it comes to that aspect, that's what has actually engaged us, or rather allowed us to grow over time. And on a daily basis, we actually have different sessions of training to these members. Because basically MSMEs, if you look at them in the economic structure, a good number of them will refer to them as the unbankable. Those also have been left out from the existing financial institutions.
Yes.
So our main work has been how can we come in to ensure that now we bring the inclusion, the inclusivity. And as a member-owned entity, we thought through and say this is the best path to take. And referring back to the main vision bearer aspect, that's Dr. Berry, who is the chair of the circle. We sat down and we gave an input and said, how best can we make this work? Because we realized and experienced the challenges that other circles are going through, other financial institutions are going through, and we said the best way to mitigate this is ensure that we give the right capacity building.
The right capacity building. James, just take you back. You say that the person or the beneficiary must understand why they're taking that loan. You mean to say that quite often people come requesting for money, let's say to start a business, but once they get that money, they divert it to do something else?
Correct.
So how then do we deal with that? So then we build proper capacity, so then we don't experience situations where you have given out money, but that money is not doing what it is intended to do. Or how then do you ensure that indeed when people have discipline to the extent that when they take money for function B, that is actually working for that function?
Good. On that aspect, there's something called assessment, business assessment. A good number of times, what you normally do on a daily basis is to understand the client's business. What are you doing as a client? Why do you need this money? Number one thing, if you understand the niche, the reason why this money is required, now you are well placed to advise the person. Because the reason why they do divert these funds is because, number one thing, maybe the person's engaging rather involving in line with this credit facility does not go to levels of understanding what kind of business that this person do. So what number one thing we look at is we understand the business aspect. What business is this person running? And what is the capacity of this business? That's not understanding the in and outflow of cash within this business. You cannot give someone a credit facility of maybe 10,000 and if the business ability is maybe 3,000 Kenya shillings. So one thing you have to understand the business ability. What is this business able to do? And if it's able to amount to volumes of maybe 5,000 in a day, you can't risk and give this person 10,000 for their daily input. So what you look at is you understand the cash flow, the in and out flows of these funds. So when you understand that aspect, you're able now to give right input and advice on what amount this person is able to get. Then, on the next level that you look at is, apart from just doing the business assessment, upon issuing this facility, there's something called member management, engaging the member until the point of crucial whereby they're able to repay this amount. So you have to be part and parcel of the business of this specific individual.
Yeah. Great. James,
yes.
One of the key issues that some of your beneficiaries have actually raised is the fact that you give out money to a group, and cumulatively that money looks enough on paper. However, when that money is disseminated into individuals, you find that that money cannot assist them move to the next level. And some have said that could be the reason as to why most of them are finding it extremely difficult to do what? To repay that money. How then do we structure or restructure this fund to ensure that indeed it meets the needs of the beneficiary, and it is not just a matter of giving out money, and once you give out money, then the beneficiaries feel that this is too little to actually kickstart us into the next phase that we want to get to?
Thank you very much. You mentioned that the size of the loans that we give could be affecting, the uptake. And I mentioned earlier on that the uptake of our loan is pretty high. In fact, even in an area where the repayment rates could be low as below the national average of 42%, I would want to tell you that our model, the Wes Fund model, has worked so well in some areas. I'll give you an example of Imenti North constituency, where the repayment rate is around 94%. That is pretty high. And if you look at the revolving, because I mentioned that this is a revolving fund, if you look at the revolving, they have received around, since inception, around 44 million, but they have revolved well over 20 million. And they have in their kitty now well over 60. So where the model works, the issue of the size does not really matter. He will tell you, my colleague will tell you, that normally when it comes to credit facilities, you assess the beneficiary, and that is what we normally do during the vetting, so that we start with something that they are able to repay. And we normally enhance this over a period of time. I mentioned from 50,000 all the way to half a million. And remember, the structuring of these funds, the affirmative funds, Wes Fund plays at the bottom of the pyramid. We are targeting the most underserved and unserved. And like where we are today, one of our beneficiaries, this is a group called Bandani. Bandani Women's Women Group. There are about 18 of them. We have funded them 3 times. They started with 80,000. They moved. Now they are servicing a loan of 250. Wes Fund in some cases grow from like that group. It has created over 18. Each one of them through Wes Fund have their businesses like the one that we are now at Jubilee. We have them running business, sustainable businesses. So they have grown. Of course, we are aware as the fund. We are aware of the point that you've raised, that the size needs to be enhanced, and we want them to grow over time. Because you see, sometimes when you give somebody a lot of money for a start, without giving them space to grow, chances are very high without a plan, like they are saying. And for Wes Fund, before we give you the loan, there is what we call pre-disbursement, mandatory pre-disbursement training, and I'm in charge of that department. So they have taken through business development services. For example, market access, which is normally a challenge. Another thing is about technology, because at this time and age, they need to embrace technology to become more competitive. So yes, I agree with you. We have plans actually to enhance the size. In fact, we are diversifying our product so that we are able to meet their various needs in terms of size. Right now, we are talking about a value chain product that targets, the various value chains, and it will start at around 500,000. So that will take care of the size.
Great, James.
Yes.
Is it? You've also touched on political interference,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And I'm looking at it from this perspective. Each electioneering year, there's a fund that is actually started, and when a fund is initiated by the government, there's that tendency of members of the public looking at it as mali ya serikali. So they're not very much obligated in terms of repaying, or if they want to, if they're repaying, it is not as prompt as you'd expect, right, from a private point of view. How then do we move forward? How do we dissociate this from mali ya serikali to a fund that is actually benefiting SMEs, and a fund that can actually be that actually comes into effect in terms of ensuring that SMEs can actually benefit and not look at the high interest rates that are actually given out by banks?
That's very right. Okay, the strategy that we have is that going forward, we learned our lessons. In 2014, 2015, at the inception of the fund, there was a lot of political interference. What happened was this. The politicians who are patrons, the MPs, interfered in a way that the messaging was not right. They were telling them that this is hii ni pesa ya serikali, muchukue, and that really affected the repayment of the fund. But I can assure you, if you go to constituency where initially the messaging was right, like the constituency are given an example where there is absolutely no political interference, because the MP gives to run the fund professionally. They do targeted, kind of identification of groups. They vet the groups so that they are able to, fund them according to their ability. And then the committee is able to monitor the performance of these groups so that they are able to mentor them over time. It has worked so well to the extent that in cases where there is no political interference, what we expect from the patrons is actually some support so that the committee can work effectively, because the challenges of finances in terms of running these committees. But with if they give the right message that this is a revolving fund, number one, this is okay, it is a government fund, but it is revolving. It is meant for the underserved and underserved. So them is to help, facilitate the access to this fund.
engagement. Yes. Fantastic. James, one of the issues that you've actually told me over and again has been the issue of actually being with SMEs is top notch. That one, when you give out money, members of the public understand that they must repay back, right? And like in government situations where they feel like independence, the government actually started considering the fact that you can actually work hand in hand to ensure disbursed in the best way possible.
Good, yeah. Thank you so much. I think number one thing that we need to look at is, as a circle, we are a private member-owned circle. And I believe in such a setup, an economic setup, it's high time like the government look into how best can we work with, as a government with the existing services aligned that meet the needs. Like my colleague here, they deal major per se, but on this other aspect, we deal both in basis, understanding their business and even savings towards their distribution, other contributions towards the credit end. A good number of them find it very hard because they believe below $1. A good number of MSMEs believe below $1 on a daily basis. What they're looking at is they're trying to ensure that whatever they salvage in a day, they use it to take care of their bills. So the training that we're coming up here is we're trying to ensure that we try as much as possible to help them build these funds. And how best can we ensure that we build these funds? We can only ensure these funds are built if we have now a proper and well-aligned partnership with the government, whereby the government is able to look into how best can we come in to align ourselves with the existing MSME circles. So if you look at what we have right now, like a Fresa circle basically on MSMEs. If we are able to partner with the government, work out an arrangement with even Wes team and see how best are we able to meet these MSMEs. I believe we'll be able to achieve so much above 80% in terms of the credit engagement. Right now, we're not able to meet that threshold of 80% plus because the need is way too beyond the supply. So the amount that you're able to issue is minimal compared to the supplies in place. And that's why we're looking into how best can we work hand in hand with the government, see how best we're able now to reach out to these people the way we're doing on a daily basis and support with the business processes. I believe that will ensure that the growth is attained.
James, is it time that we actively engage private players to ensure that indeed we can actually reach out to more people and also change the narrative in terms of just ensuring that they don't look at these facilities kama mali ya serikali, mali ya umma, something that I can actually take and disappear? Yes.
Thank you very much. Engaging private players, Wes Fund has embraced that. In fact, I would want to point out that we have a number of groups that have linked up to SACCOs, and they are getting dividends. So strategic partners like my colleague here come in very handy to expand, that space in terms of financial access. But allow me also to say that Wes Fund partners with several private, only the SACCOs and the cooperatives. We have other strategic players like other NGOs. We have a number of players that have come on board to empower these groups so that they are able to access, they are able to grow. I wanted also to point out, you ask about the performance of a Wes Fund around this area. And one of the reasons why the fund has not performed so well, remember, this is an area that has been for the longest time in the opposition. And initially the messaging was, get it, don't repay. And over time, I give an example like Mbita where Millie Odhiambo is the patron. We have given loans almost twice within this year. She's very positive about the fund. She's very supportive to the committee. And where patrons of the fund are supportive, you realize that the uptake is quite high, repayment is quite improved. In fact, above the average of about 42%. So private players, we welcome you on board anytime. In fact, I'm also in charge of, resource mobilization or partnership. So my friend James, you are welcome, so that we expand that space, so that we can enable our groups, like the Matani group. They were telling us that they need more funds. We are willing and ready anytime to, link them up with you guys, so that they can be able to access or expand their financial access. Yes.
As we conclude, looking at all the challenges that our SMEs are actually facing, one of the key issues that people have actually raised has been the issue of creating circles, ensuring that these small outfits across the region that we so much like, right, are actually converted into much more structured outfits that that have structures that actually have well-trained individuals in terms of funds management. Is it the way to go?
Indeed, it is the way to go, because if you look at our model, we normally target groups. I've mentioned the 3 groups, that is youth, women, and PWDs. At the lowest level, we expect these groups to transit from that social orientation to entrepreneurial. Each one of them, as members of a group, we encourage them and we want to build their capacity so that each one of them can run a business like Bandani Self Women Group. There are 2 members who now own business vehicles, and they are doing pretty well. You look at their enterprises, they are doing pretty well despite the challenges. So what we are saying is, Wes Fund, we want groups to transition from those social welfare groups, merry-go-round groups, into viable circles. And I'll give you an example. If you go to Butula, we have a circle. Courtesy, initiative of Wes Fund. There's a group that has evolved.
That's my home village.
Yes, there's a group that has evolved from that social welfare into now a viable circle. And they are offering credit to members and even non-members. So that is our model. In fact, don't forget that Wes Fund is domiciled within the Ministry of Cooperative and MSME. And we want these groups to evolve from circles to cooperatives so that they are able to access even bigger funds with bigger impacts.
Bigger funds with bigger impacts. Yes. James, one of the circles that are actually successfully operating in this region, a region that has a history from pre-colonial era, colonial era, to actually being on the forefront in terms of circle formation, right? But somehow something happened in between, just after independence up until now, and this region, it is contribution to the cooperative movement in the country just about 1%. What is the secret?
Well, thank you very much. The main secret when it comes to circle management, number one thing is, circle management, as I said earlier on, is member-owned and member managed. What you need to look at, number one thing, is have the aspect of inclusivity. Let the member feel the right ownership of the entire process. The moment they realize and recognize that this thing belongs to them, then they're able not to participate fully in the process. Another thing that you have to look at is about ensuring that now we spread out or rather push the levels of knowledge. There's lack of awareness in this region, and what affects most people, or rather most MSMEs, is just the lack of knowledge. But now that can be able, the bridge can only be able to work out if we actually enhance on ensuring that the capacity building is aligned right. The economic aspect in this area is quite good from my end, or rather from my perspective and from our analysis. We've realized that a good number of these people, if they're well knowledge with the economic input, they're able to deliver more when it comes to growth, in entrepreneurial growth. And another aspect that you're looking at is the MSMEs across the country, per se. They form over 90% of the labor force. Okay? And if we try or work hand in hand to ensure that we push or that drive this area of the 90% of the labor force, I believe we're able to transmit the entire economy to another level. What is actually limiting us is, what I can say clearly is lack of proper alignment with the given other stakeholders who are playing the same roles. Like for instance, like Wes Fund, when they're coming into an entry point whereby they are working through to ensure that they are meeting the objectives on the ground, I believe it's high time them as the government look into who are equal partners or who are individuals that you can work with hand in hand to meet this objective. Because I tend to believe it's not a competition, but reason is we have same objective, or rather we have same goal to attain at the end of the day. And for us to attain this goal, we have to reason together. We have to work hand in hand and see how best are we able to meet this objective. It's mentioned about they have at least a repayment of around 42%. If I'll tell you right now today, in our SACCO setup, we have a default rate of below 4%. So if I merge the two, I realize Wezo as an entity or as a platform, they need a Fresh as a platform to get things working. Because if we have a default rate of less than 4% and they have a repayment of 42%, meaning we have a repayment of above 90%, then I believe it's high time Wezo Fund looks into how best are we able to meet this existing objective by actually
creating synergies.
Creating a synergy that can work through for the overall good of these MSMEs. So it's high time that we align ourselves towards those angles and ensure that now the 42% mark of Wezo Fund comes to at least a margin of 90+% at the end of the day.
Fantastic. Even with the 42% James, of all the government funds that are actually out there, Wezo Fund seems to be on people's lips over and again. What is the secret? Just 1 minute as we conclude.
The secret is very simple. In terms of outreach, we are in every ward, 290 constituency, 1,450 wards. With each ward represented the Wezo Fund in the committee. And then do not forget that right now Wezo Fund is rated in terms of interest. So it is the most affordable. It is the most accessible.
Fantastic. That is James and James from Afresa SACCO and James from Wezo Fund, of course, breaking down for us how we can actually build the capacity of SMEs in the region, so that then the grassroots level in terms of just ensuring that SMEs can move from the page to the key point is that all those table banking outfits that we have in our villages, we have in our homes, we have at our places of work, please transform them into SACCO so then you can actually create that financial resilience that is so much need from this regional individual. Simon, of course, I want to thank each and every person who has made this possible. My colleague Martin Kivuti and of course Simon Yamatiko behind Benedict from Wezo Fund. Thank you very much. Take it back to the house.